What's up? I'm Brianna Ivy, and this is the Hear from a Student podcast. Dorsey, what's up with you? How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people. Let us know your name, what you studied in college, where you went to college, and where you're from.
Cool. I'm Dorsey Beckles. Um, Went to school with Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech. Uh, Lived in Lithonia, Georgia, or Decatur. And I'm a computer engineering major.
Yeah,
That's the greatest major on tech.
not even real. All right. So take me back to Dorsey, senior high school, and you like, I gotta figure out what I want to do when I get to college. What made you decide, or what did you choose first? Did you choose computer engineer or did you choose Georgia Tech?
Um, I my senior year in high school was a really weird one because I was doing like video production stuff at the time. My mentor was somebody that was also like into mass communication and things like that. And it was interesting because I was like, I actually don't want to do any of this. I was like editing videos with Final Cut Pro. It's like a Mac software for editing. And yeah, I was just like, I don't actually want to do any of this. I want to do computer engineering. And this is just based off of like a 5 minute video on YouTube. And so I also was just like, I don't know anything about it, but let's do it. And I wanted to like really go to the best and the greatest. And then when I Googled like best place for computer engineering, Georgia Tech came up and I was like, cool, I don't even have to go out of state.
Yeah.
So I'll just start there. But there was a process to that. My high school GPA and stuff like that wasn't the greatest. So I was like, I wouldn't make it there right now. So I looked into like alternatives. I had two mentors. I went to my other mentors, what's the term, alma mater, University of West Georgia. I went to that school and there was actually an RETP program, Regents Engineering Transfer Program. A lot of people are doing it or were doing it. I don't know if the program exists, but it was basically like you would take your core classes at those universities, and then when you transfer to tech, you would go into your major classes at tech. And I was like, oh, cool, let's just go on that boat. And I was already like accepted to University of West Georgia, so it was a interesting journey because everybody was like, "Why do you want to do computer engineering?" And I was like, "I don't know. Look, it seems cool, you know." No experience or any knowledge of like what that even meant until later on in college.
Okay, so you go from University of West Georgia, you come into Georgia Tech. When
Yep.
you started doing like your first couple of classes, were you like, I feel this is a pretty equivalent experience? Did you feel like prepared, or what was that transition like going from West Georgia to Tech?
So like what people don't realize in those RETP programs, like everybody's trying to get into tech because they're like that's the best of the best, and so there's like collaborative but also competitive mindset there. And there's just so many rumors floating around about like what tech would be like. Oh yeah, if you get a C, you'd never make it into tech. It's just like very bad. So when I messed up in Cal 2, for example, I was just like scared, man. Because that set me back. Of course, I made it up and I did pretty good. But I was just like, I'm afraid of what tech would do. And I was already like working on contingency plans. I was like, okay, I'll apply to Kennesaw too, just to make sure I'm good and I'm going to school next year. But definitely not. Definitely a lot more grinding. At West Georgia, I comfortably had a 4.0 my freshman year. And I was like, oh crap, this college thing is pretty legit. That changed when the Fire Nation attacked. That changed when the Nation went to tech. You were grinding harder. And I realized that that was just the culture. It's kind of interesting going from two different universities like that too, because I guess West Georgia isn't really like a tech school or whatever. So the culture is different there as well.
Yeah.
People are engaged in so many sports and stuff like that. And then when you go to tech, everybody's like, yeah, I'm on the grind this week. And then Hell Week, things like that, that culture. is definitely something that you have to get used to, but it's cool because it reminds you that everybody else is going through it. But yeah,
Do you remember your first Hell Week?
there's like several, I guess.
I know.
So I don't
I
remember
feel
the very.
like there were several, but I feel like the first one is the one that really hit you in the face. Like they really put all these tests in the same week, and you have to figure out like
Yes.
how to balance it and how to study, when to study for what, and how to study for
Yeah.
what.
I think, well, I do remember it because I remember MATLAB. That was my introduction to MATLAB too. And
Yeah.
you know how me and MATLAB go. But we took the DSP class, right? And I think like the year after that, they like removed it from the computer engineering coursework or whatever, but whatever.
Yeah, they don't have to take it no
DSP
more. They
was
take
cool.
a
Yeah.
Java.
Yeah. So that was interesting. Yeah. Taking DSP, I was like, what? And there was a lot in there. I think, yeah, I don't know if it was like a hell week in which it was like just multiple tests, but I remember the first test I took for DSP, I was like, God save me.
Because he's the only one that can do it.
Yeah,
Once you started, so I'm assuming when you came in, had you already taken like all your core classes, like so
legit.
you jumped right into computer engineering classes?
Yeah, that was, yeah,
That's hilarious. Not
yeah.
not it's funny. I'm sure it wasn't funny for you at the time, but it's funny that that was your introduction to Georgia Tech because I'm pretty sure it made you want to run and scream and run for the hills.
For
So
sure.
what
Yeah.
was uh once you got over like the initial shock of Georgia Tech culture, or how did you was there like any event that you can recall that like helped you adjust to Georgia Tech culture? Like what was your mindset in trying to adjust?
Definitely took a minute for me. So I think, well, I didn't finish all my core classes. Apparently, I was missing something. So I kind of had that to balance me off that first semester I was there. And I came in during spring. And I don't know, the onboarding, I guess, for tech was just a little bit strange. Like I didn't get shirts or anything like that, or everything was just kind of sped up.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, coming in spring was a bit different. And what ended up happening? I was in all these classes and I was just like listening to the what my peers around me would say. And like I said, the culture is just different. So somebody was like, yeah, dude, I'm building like a 3D printer out of a 3D printer. And I'm just like, what? Just a lot of complexities. And honestly, for a time, I was like, I was feeling undeserving. I was like, I'm here, but I have not done any of these big things. I don't have that specific thing, I guess. So it's fitting into the culture around you, and then it's trying to actually keep up with your coursework as well. Um, I don't know if there was a time where I was really like, yeah, I got this now. I think I was just dragging myself along, maybe until senior year, and then I was like, okay, we're there yet. So now it's nothing else to do. We'll just make it to the end,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, you got out of there, so I would
Yeah,
hope so.
yeah, yeah.
What were some of your favorite computer engineering classes that you took? And then what were some of your least favorite?
Easy. So it's not specific to computer engineering, but you know how we have to take like those. I'm gonna start with the worst, by the way. You know how we have to take those like other engineering classes. It's like you either take material science or you
Yeah.
take like thermal or nuclear. I took nuclear. Didn't really like it too much, honestly. It kind of got confusing, and then yeah, it was peak COVID too at the time. So like if you remember that transition, it was just hard for everybody to go from like being inside all the time to just like now, oh yeah, all your exams and stuff are gonna be online and you're just like, bro, I didn't even know what I was doing when I was in the class. How am I gonna know outside? Getting that motivation to do that. Um, there was a class that was very important. I think it was physical foundations of engineering. I forget what exactly the material was about, but I think it was about like semiconductor structures and how like yeah.
I
I
think you
it was
guys
a
we
very
took you didn't take micro 3040. Microelectronics was not a computer
no
engineering
no no no
requirement. So I think we took different microelectronic classes, but that sounds like
yeah.
what it
That
was.
one was a bit confusing. It seemed like it was more I can't even remember it at this point. It's been so long now, but yeah, that one was just a really confusing class for me at the time. and I just couldn't like gauge things at the
Yeah.
time. I think I was just like disconnected a little bit. And that one wasn't during COVID, so I think it was just me not looking into it as much. It just became a bit confusing.
Yeah.
Uh, Favorite class, hands down, is like the dream team, man. 4180. I will never forget that project because I think that was like the best team that's the best team assignment I've ever had in college, like period, hands down. Um, so I guess for people that are listening, it's like it's me, you, another two other double E's, right?
Joel and
Joel
Valeria.
and yeah, Valeria. And yeah, I was actually doing the hardware technically, right? I was building the microcontroller or whatever and putting wires, all that good stuff together. No soldering, I don't think we had to do.
No.
And you guys are working on the software. So we like switched
Isn't that
roles
ridiculous?
and everything actually still worked out. We combined it later. We were like, let's test this. Threw a camera on that guy, and then we were done. And I was like, that was way too smooth. Are we really done? Yeah,
Yeah.
and I just finished the paper for us. So just review it, guys, and everything's good. I think Valeria worked on it, if I
Yeah.
recall.
And then we have
And
to do the virtual presentation.
all that went smoothly.
Yeah.
Just a very, I don't know. I was just not used to the pace in which we did that. Like everybody was in sync.
Yeah.
Joe, I think, got COVID or something like that, or he got sick, and
Joel got
then
sick. Wow.
and he he disappeared, and he was like, I'll just do what I can from here, and then yeah, it all worked. Like
Isn't
that
that
was
how
like
he ended up doing the code because he got sick? Is that
yeah,
the thing?
I
And then
think
I
so.
think he got sick, and then we had to like restructure what everybody was doing.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's probably what it was. And then I had the bot, so I think that's how that ended up happening. Um,
Because we know you wasn't doing the hardware just to be doing the hardware, but keep going.
hey, at the end of the day, we saved lives together, man. We saved grades together.
We saved grades together.
Um, but no, that was just a very cool project to work on. There's another class, the the number, I can't remember the numbers anymore. It was just advanced computing. That was a computer. That was like a software class. Like I think it's advanced computer techniques. I took that with a friend. We got to make like games. It was like I'm forgetting all the class names now. But basically, we got to make like computer games, and that was kind of cool. Just doing that was pretty fun for me. Just doing like a fake Pac-Man or whatever, stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah, it wasn't C++, was it?
It was C++. Yeah, it was C++.
Oh, okay.
I
What was your?
forget which course that was though. I don't think it's one you took with me though.
I didn't take it with you. I
Yeah.
took it with. I don't know who I took it with. I can't remember the number either, but I remember being C++. You took it with a John or a Jeff?
Jeff, I
Jeff.
think. Jeffrey, maybe. I don't know.
Jeffrey? Yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah, okay, C++. Okay, what was one of your least favorite projects and why?
The least favorite projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for your favorite projects, you had the video game class,
Yeah.
you made the Bluetooth driving robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what was some of your least favorite?
Least
Or at least one.
favorite. What is that class that we were in with the you know what I'm talking about, the D2 bot in assembly? Or I guess that was
That was
VHDL.
2031. I'll always
There we
remember.
go. I know you would remember it. So yeah, that's the first time I met you actually. Good times. Yeah, that class. I just didn't like it in general.
What made that class so bad? Was it the content? Was it the project? I think it was. Honestly, first of all, I failed every lab quiz. That's the first thing. The lab quizzes,
The lab quizzes were depressing. It set the mood for the time you had in lab.
because it wasn't even like the class was once a week, twice a week, but only one was lecture, and then the other one was go to the lab.
Yeah.
The lab quizzes were never really about what the lecture was about.
Yeah. They were kind of out of sync, man.
And I failed them all.
I did too. The DE2 bot thing, I think I just didn't understand it enough. I can't remember. I think I've just like pushed that out of my brain on how that process went. I just remember we were really frustrated trying to get that
The
working.
group
And
was split, and I
yeah,
felt like people were doing It was bad communication. It was just people
Yeah.
had decided what they was gonna do, but didn't tell nobody. It was a
Yeah.
whole thing.
And that goes to it. Like we had like the two opposites, like the best, like
Yeah.
flawless, and we have uh the robot was controlled by an Ardu let me not be wrong. No, the robot was controlled by the embed, and
Yes.
then the Bluetooth stuff was like separate, or not the Bluetooth part, but like the web server, because we had a recording too. Like we had a
Yeah.
video that was on like Python, and that was easy.
Yeah. The thing I was getting at was all that stuff was more familiar to me than when we got to the 2031 class and we had to do VHDL and assembly, which is much lower level.
VHDL also popped out of nowhere. This is our intro to VHDL, by the
For
way,
sure. Oh
or at
yeah, the
least
intro to VHDL was build a driving robot.
yeah,
And
yeah.
assembly. So yeah, maybe that's why I didn't like the
It was
class.
just hard to grasp those skills so quickly when you're still trying to even understand what everything's doing.
Yeah, that's true.
That brings me to another point, though. Actually, I pulled on that thread a little bit, and I actually took like a reverse malware class.
Oh
So we
yeah.
were looking at like assembly and stuff like that. I don't know if those are necessarily projects, but our assignments in which we're like analyzing like very serious viruses and stuff like that was actually pretty cool. That was also very fun. I don't. It's not a project, like I said. It was mainly our assignments to like analyze code and or assembly code and figure out what it was doing. But that was pretty fun.
Yeah. So you came in with like computer engineering just cool. I'm gonna try it. So once you started getting into the classes, were you able to clear up any misconceptions about what you thought computer engineering was and like get an understanding of, oh, I thought it was this, but it's actually this.
Hmm. Oh, so let me share the full story. So at West Georgia, my sophomore year, I felt like I was on top of the world. I was an RA, a resident assistant. So, we got like access to like everything. We have residents, people under us, stuff like that. And I was like, at the time, just socially, I was very open, much more than I've like ever been, in my opinion. So that was just an interesting time. I had also just reached out to a lot of people because I really wanted to figure out before I went to tech, like, do I want to pull more on this computer engineering thing, or am I content where I'm at right now? And it's not their fault, but they didn't have a lot of like support for that, I guess. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, we have this transfer program, but we can't really tell you anything else about your major, bro, basically. So it was like me finding out things, and that they ended up having like uh, they ended up, I don't know how it worked out, but there ended up being like a separate makerspace that was disconnected from the school. It wasn't part of the school, but they had a deal with them, and they had just made a deal that they could like send students over there. So there was like this one, maybe 2 credit. It was a very small credit course that I was like, ooh, this is probably the time that I can get into some stuff because they were promoting STEM and all that stuff, and then like video production as well. So it was like I was like, oh crap, this would be a good opportunity. So when I got there, they gave us these kits. They're Arduino kits, and at this point, I didn't even know Arduino at all. I'm still like a sophomore in college, so I didn't know any of that stuff at the time. And so when I was coding on it, and I just read up more on it, they were like, "This is kind of what you'd be doing in these fields, and this coding stuff is kind of what you would end up doing as a computer engineer or as a computer scientist, electrical engineer, or whatever." And then I was like, this was kind of fun. And then so even like we were grouped up, my team would actually be like, Dorsey, we know you love this stuff, so please help us out with this or whatever. And I'd be like, oh crap, I'm glad like it's showing too. Like I'm actively like very excited to do what the projects that were put in front of us. So that was cool. Transitioning to tech, I guess I was a bit more aware of what I wanted to get into. But then again, I guess like I love computer engineering because I think it is balanced of the two, computer science and electrical engineering. We
Tell
could
me more
leave
about that.
that debate for later.
Oh, okay.
But well, you know what? I think it's balanced in the sense that like we have the flexibility to take the same classes you guys had. Like they've changed the whole structure of it now, so now it's focused more on computer science. But before we were taking like at least the beginning courses, they were the same. I was taking DSP with you guys, and we didn't necessarily need to, but we had that flexibility to be like, oh, let's go there, and if we want to, let's do some software over there. I just liked that balance, and then it kind of made me figure out in my head what I wanted to learn, um, or which one I wanted to lean more towards.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the balance I got though. Obviously, I'm still more software than anything, but I
For
still
sure.
like hardware. That that was a very quick response. But
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't come to tech with like expecting anything. Like what computer engineering is in my head. I knew that it was probably limited. I was just messing with an Arduino, so I'm like, I know this is somewhat the avenue that I'm going towards, but I don't know all that it includes right now. But getting there and learning more, I was like, okay, this is.
Okay. Was
I
there
didn't really have expectations.
okay? Was there a point or a class that you got to where you were like, I love being a computer engineer? Which is okay, hard to say as you're like going through it, but in retrospect, looking
Yeah,
back, is there a moment that you can pinpoint and you was like, yes, this was the right decision?
actually, yeah. Um, and it's crazy because I don't even think I did that good in the class initially because I think it was one of the first ones I took. Like when we did the digital design class, digital logic or something like that. I forget how it was called, but it was like where you learned about like binaries and
Oh, the first
nans,
one.
nans, ors, all that good
Yeah.
stuff. Um, that a little bit, and then probably um, it's one of those software classes that I took that was C++. Because in that we also did MIPS assembly, and I was like, this is kind of lit. I just kind of liked the difficulty, and I don't know. I think we all, as engineers, we love that feeling sometimes of like getting over a hurdle,
We like a
and
good
like,
challenge sometimes.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I we all would love that hurdle of like, I really just survived this class, and I was like really like stressed out when I saw that syllabus and didn't understand this. But now I understand this. Maybe not. I'm not the best to explain it right now, but I could. If you mentioned it to me, I could track along with it now.
yeah.
So I really like that.
Okay. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that would be at that point. I think.
You know what class made me feel like I'm an engineer?
uh,
Junior design.
oh. Why did I forget that? That was actually a very beneficial class for me too. Um, yeah, very
Yeah,
beneficial. How did I forget that? I have no clue, but
it's
yeah.
okay.
Well, that was also like a traumatic project time.
You could
Uh,
have blocked it out of your memory because I try to block it out of mine unless I gotta bring it up because it was
our project was good, but
yes,
I
your
think
project was so good. So what I don't even know why
I
you
think
have
there are
dramatic
things that
experience.
I could have done better to
You're talking
support
about
things.
personal growth. I'm talking about the entire
Oh,
existence of
it
the
looked
thing that
good,
we
but it
did.
wasn't as functional, you know?
Well, guess what? Ours didn't look good, or was it functional? So anyway, okay. What do you think college taught you about yourself?
Um, mm, so much, honestly. It's hard to even think about it. Because especially transitioning from different schools too. I think that I would definitely change when I feel like I changed when I moved from like West Georgia to Tech. Because I have to adjust first of
Yeah.
all. And then graduating from tech and then going straight into a full-time job, you have to grow up real quick, especially when you're moving halfway across the country. So, well, more than halfway across the country. I'm all the way in Arizona. Um, I guess one valuable thing is that I'm capable. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. As soon as I got into tech at West Georgia, I was like, oh, this is not too bad. As soon as I got into tech, I was like, dude, what am I doing? Like literally, what am I doing at all times? And even a little bit after I like went into industry, I was kind of feeling that way. I was like, these guys are going to think I'm dumb if they ask me any questions right now, you know? But I'm like putting all this pressure on myself and I'm only like 1 month in here. I don't think anybody expects you to just immediately know it, especially if they know you came from out of college.
Yeah.
But it's just that like you want to know things, you know, you want to be good at your job and things like that. You want to do well in school. You want to know the answer to everything or somewhat everything. You don't want to say anything that makes you look, I don't know, like you don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, I think it just has taught me that I'm capable, and although I'll be afraid or something in the beginning, I'll eventually jump over that hurdle, and maybe I'll start building more confidence as time goes on. Thanks.
Really great. Yes. Because what did Georgia Tech teach me? That I can do whatever I want to do in this world. Because if I
Yeah.
can beat Georgia Tech is like playing the game on hard all the
Hmm.
time and never taking it off of hard. Never going to easy, never going to medium, always on hard. Therefore, now that I have beaten Georgia Tech, I can do anything else. And
That's fair. Yeah.
yes. So you graduate Georgia Tech. Congratulations. Okay.
Appreciate it.
I'm gonna
Congrats
put
to
that
you.
in the background.
Also, we both did.
Yeah, we did. You got out of there before me, but that's okay because I followed you up.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
and then it's time for you to pick a job. You do some interviews, job offers, and you decide to go all the way to the other side of the United States. So what was the thought process like in accepting a job that you knew you had to pick up and move to Arizona where you didn't know anybody? What was your thought process in saying, you know what, I want this job enough that I'm willing to make that change in my life?
Truthfully, it was a nervous time. It was actually easier than you thought, especially if you're just like, especially because was like, I didn't know what I wanted to get into yet, honestly. So at this time, I was, this is 2022, right? Let's go back a little bit to 21, because that's the most extreme. We had COVID going on, and I had tried to line up interviews for an internship because I was like, I badly need an internship. I need something that will help direct me on what I want to do when I get in the industry. Because I mean, you can like software engineering, every major has like levels to it, and you have different fields you can run into, different concentrations, things like that. I just wanted to understand what all those were. COVID happened, boom. Sorry, y'all, we're not doing this anymore. Crap. Um, so I found out about ORS. I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but that helped me out a lot. So I was basically doing research, basically with, I believe, like a PhD student, and that put me on board because actually they're sponsored by Raytheon, which is where I'm at now, Intel, and just a lot of other companies. And they were always just like, send your resume. I was like, crap, my resume is terrible. So tried to clean it up, hopefully clean it up. It probably still was bad, but thankfully they saw something in me. But yeah, we actually had interviews in December. They had like a very big hiring event. It was just like rapid fire at Raytheon, and they just were like, hey, I forget how it was, but it was like virtual rooms. So it was like, which area did you want to work in or whatever. So I just slipped into one because I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go, but Lord, let's do it. And so I slipped into one, and then it was a really good conversation actually. The guys and the lady, they liked me, and I was just like, huh, this is cool. And then the guy says something that just boosts my head up. He's like, yeah, expect a call later on in the week. And I was just like, just a big smile across the face, man. So that happened, and I'm really grateful for ORS, honestly, because that really kind of saved me during COVID as well. So yeah, it's actually a very significant thing I think about now. Like being able to say that you already have a job when you're still in school is kind of like a huge thing because that just doesn't happen. I know plenty of people that were on board to graduate during COVID that like those plans got cut and they had to apply crazy when they graduated or work in fields that they didn't really want to just to get by. And in general, it's just even ignoring COVID. That's just a cool thing to say that you already have a job.
Yeah.
The minute you graduate, you just have to cross the stage. Like everything else is set up.
You just have to cross the stage. It's such a simple but important sentence.
Yes. Yeah. Like you literally just have to cross the stage. Just graduate and you're good. Yeah, but it is actually more significant than you think. But yeah, having that like, oh crap, I don't have to like worry about applying for a job for that whole semester, spring semester,
Yeah.
was just like kind of cool. But it's also it kind of drives you, you know, you're like, I can't mess up anything right now because I have basically my career ahead of me. Like literally, it's waiting on me, you
Yeah.
know? Outside of everything else, you just got to write some paperwork, but you have something ahead of you. You know what you're doing. Like it's one of
Yeah.
those when they ask you what are you doing for a year from now, you like legit know what you'd be doing. You signed a contract for it already. So it's a cool, scary. It's just a lot of feelings that you have with that. Um, I don't even know the the original question at this point.
I think you answered it. Your thought process in taking a job that you knew you would have to move, and then the follow up was what was the transition like from Georgia moving to Arizona,
Oh,
and
okay,
how you created a home away from home
cool.
or
Okay,
your
so
or a new
transition.
home.
Yeah, so transition was actually kind of funny. So, like I said, I came from like a transfer program, right? Um, and I fell back a little bit because I didn't do too good in Cal 2. But there was a guy that was also an RA with me there, and he was also a part of the program. He also wanted to be a computer engineer. He also wanted to go to tech. Um, it's my homeboy. So he went to tech a semester earlier than me. He graduated earlier than me also, but he ironically went to Tucson as well, which was like I was like, this has to be God. It's just kind of funny how all that stuff worked out. I'm like, I'm not stalking you, bro. I swear, we just have the same ideas. I didn't even know he was in Tucson until I texted him randomly, and I was like, didn't you say you were headed somewhere like this, some weird place? I wasn't even saying the name right at the time. I was like Tucson or something like that. And he's like, yeah, I'm in Tucson, dude. But yeah, he graduated in December. He graduated when I got my offer, basically, which is hilarious. And he had already been transitioning to move to Arizona. So in terms of like me transitioning there, I had somebody there. I was asking him about like, you know, how was that transition as well? Which so I guess I kind of cheated a little bit because I was just like, oh, what did you do? Did you have a good
Yeah.
church family? Stuff like that. What are things like in Tucson? Temperature and stuff like that. He was just like, yeah, it's extremely hot, 120, crazy stuff like that. So transitioning was not that bad. As well as you know, you got a contract, so moving was technically not that bad. We're college students. I was still living at home, so it was not that much stuff for me to move in the first place. The company did the heavy lifting when they paid for it, realistically.
Yeah.
Well, not realistically, but honestly. And yeah, I guess the drive was a bit of a funny thing. We drove from Georgia to Tucson. I think it was like 30 something hour drive. It was insane. Luckily, I didn't do it myself. Shout out to my dad. But yeah, I wanted my family to be there with me too. They also wanted to be there just to support me and be around, explore what Tucson is, and because none of us had been on the West Coast at the time too, so
Yeah.
it was just kind of a cool thing to do. Just bring them along with me, and they helped me set up stuff like that. So yeah, the transition itself wasn't actually that bad. Getting into work, I guess, was a bit of another thing, trying to understand all of that. But yeah, I think that's it.